BankTEL Systems Accounts Payable program provides robust functionality for adding use tax records to invoices and for creating customizable use tax reports. This video will define use tax, we'll show how to add use tax at the branch level, we'll show how to add use tax at the vendor level, we'll show how to add a use tax record to a new or pre-existing invoice, we'll show how to allocate use tax between multiple branches, and we'll show how to pull a use tax record report. Use tax is essentially a tax on use or consumption of a given product. Use tax is levied by a number of state governments. Use tax is required to be paid in any related situation where a given item is purchased in a state that does not require sales tax, or from a person not authorized to collect sales tax, such as from an internet auction website or a newspaper advertisement. Additional instances include purchasing an item by subscription or from a catalog without paying sales tax, personal property acquired with real estate purchase, and the distribution of property within a state for promotional purposes. Use tax rates are determined by the state's sales tax, as use tax is usually paid at the same rate. Within Accounts Payable, you can set use tax information at the branch level. To set use tax rates at the branch level, first navigate to Edit, Branch from the Accounts Payable main menu. At the branch listing screen, you can double-click an existing branch to edit it, or add a new branch by clicking the New button. For the purposes of this video, we'll just edit an existing branch. From the Edit Center Branch dialog box, below the name and ID for the branch is default information for use tax rates. Here, you can key in the state that the use tax applies to, the default tax rate for the state, for the city, and for one additional miscellaneous tax. Each field carries a percentage data type, so for example, entering 7.00 equates to a 7% tax rate. If necessary, select Apply this data to all branches to apply default information to all branches in the Accounts Payable system. Click Finish once the information has been entered for a specific branch. After clicking Finish, click Exit to return to the Accounts Payable main menu. Flagging an invoice itself to be subject to use tax can be performed one of two ways. All invoices per a given vendor can be flagged as subject to use tax, or specific invoices for any given vendor can be flagged as subject to use tax. To automatically flag all invoices per a given vendor as subject to use tax, first click on the Vendors button at the Accounts Payable main menu. From here, you can search for the specific vendor. For our purposes, we'll just click the first one on the list. Next, double-click the vendor name, and from the Vendor Maintenance window, click in the Defaults tab. This tab allows you to specify settings for invoice entry each time an invoice is entered for a particular vendor. From here, place a check beside use tax in order to flag all invoices as subject to use tax. Click Finish to return to the vendor listing and save changes, or click Cancel to return to the vendor listing without saving changes. For our purposes, we'll just click Cancel. From the vendor listing, click Cancel to return to the AP main menu. If a vendor is not set up to be subject to use tax by default, you will have to manually flag particular invoices as subject to use tax. Adding a use tax record to a particular invoice is done through Invoice Entry. First, click on Invoices from the Accounts Payable main menu. Then, begin typing a vendor name and select a vendor to begin keying an invoice for that particular vendor. Next, click in the box next to Subject to Use Tax. This option causes the program to prompt you to enter a use tax record once the invoice has been saved. The option is automatically checked if the use tax option is checked in the vendor's profile under the Default tab. If a particular invoice is not applicable for use tax and is from a vendor with the use tax option flagged in the vendor profile, uncheck the option to avoid being prompted to input a use tax record for a particular invoice. Once the Subject to Use Tax option is checked, you must key in the invoice and click Save. After clicking Save, the Use Tax dialog box appears. Here, you can calculate use tax due on a particular invoice. Within this dialog box are numerous editable fields. At the top right is a drop-down box which allows you to select from tax rate defaults that were set at the branch level. Once you select a branch, you can edit the additional fields as necessary. The tax record sequence number refers to the number of use tax records you have for a given invoice. The state field contains a 2-character limit and is used to indicate the state within which the use tax rate applies. The tax rate field allows you to key in a tax amount for state, city, and/or other additional use tax amounts. All numbers in this field are percentages. The taxed amount field automatically populates with the amount of a given invoice, and the information within the taxes due field is automatically calculated based off of the tax rate multiplied by the taxed amount. The description field allows you to type whatever is necessary to represent the miscellaneous and optional tax amounts. After you enter the information into each applicable field, click Save and Exit to return to invoice entry. If another use tax record needs to be added to the same invoice, click Save and Add. Accounts Payable also allows you to allocate use tax across multiple branches. For example, this is an invoice for Office Depot of a total amount of $500. The user wants to allocate $400 to a branch in New York and only $100 to a branch in Mississippi, and to assign a separate use tax record for the amount in each branch. Once the user is finished keying in the invoice, click Save, which will bring up the use tax screen. From here, a user will select the branch for which to add the use tax record. For example, we'll select the New York branch. Now, the taxed amount still shows the total of $500. This field will have to be edited manually. In this case, $400 of the total $500 invoice was to be allocated to the New York branch. So, we would change the tax amount from $500 to $400. Notice that the taxes due field automatically changes based upon what we've keyed in for the taxed amount. Now we're ready to click Save and Add to key in the use tax record for the Mississippi branch. Notice now that the use tax record sequence says number 2, indicating that we're working on the second use tax record. Click the drop-down box to select the second branch. In our case, it's the Mississippi branch. Now, instead of $500, we would change it to $100. And then we would click Save and Exit to save a use tax record for the Mississippi branch allocation. Use tax records for existing invoices can be added or edited multiple ways depending on whether or not the invoice has been paid. If the invoice has not been paid, from the Accounts Payable main menu, click on Invoices. Navigate to and click on the Pending tab and double-click the invoice. From here, if you're adding a use tax record for the first time, make sure to place a check mark beside Subject to Use Tax and then click Save. And the use tax screen should appear. If you're adding a new use tax record, just open up the invoice and click Save. When you click Save, the use tax screen will appear. If the invoice has multiple use tax records, your options will be to Save and Next or Save and Exit. You can make changes to any use tax record and click Save and Next to cycle through each use tax record until you reach the record that which you want to change. When you reach that record, you can click Save and Exit. If you want to add a new use tax record, click Save and Next until you get to the last use tax record, and then click Save and Add to begin keying in information for the new use tax record. If the invoice that you're editing did not have a prior use tax record, then your only options will be to Save and Add, in order to save the use tax record that you just worked on and to add a new one, or to save and exit, which would be to save the existing one and then to exit the screen. Adding a use tax record to a paid invoice can be done by double-clicking a transaction from Invoice Inquiry or from an invoice report. For an invoice report, from the Accounts Payable main menu, click on Reports at the top left, navigate down to Invoices Paid/Voided, and click on it, and then we'll ask you to select a report. You can go ahead and select Invoice Overview. Next, select your date range, then click Create Refresh Report. Simply double-click on the invoice record to bring up the invoice details screen. Click the Add Use Tax button to add a use tax record to the invoice. To add a use tax record from Invoice Inquiry, click the Inquiry button from the Accounts Payable main menu. Next, search for the invoice for which you want to add the record. Once you've entered in the necessary filters such as the name of the vendor, the invoice number, the date range, or the check number, click on Display Results. Next, double-click on the invoice that you want to add the use tax record for. It's important to note that using this method, a use tax record can only be added to a paid invoice. Once you double-click on the paid invoice, the invoice details window will appear similar to how it appeared when you double-clicked on it from the report. Just click on the Add Use Tax Record, and then just click Save and Exit when you're ready to save it. You can also pull reports that show the amount of use tax applied to a given invoice. To pull a use tax report, first click on the Reports button at the top left of the program from the main menu. From here, a drop-down menu will appear. Next, click Use Tax Reports. This will open the Reports window and will prompt you to select a specific type of use tax report. Use tax reports contain only one default report, which is the Use Tax Overview. Additional reports may be listed in this window if modified reports have been saved. Modified reports will have an X in the modified column. To open the Use Tax Overview, double-click the name in the window. Once opened, the report should appear on the screen. By default, the Use Tax Overview report contains fields for state and city tax. Additional fields for miscellaneous tax and optional tax can be added to the report if necessary. To add fields to a report, first click on Modify Report at the upper left corner in the window. Next, the Customize Report dialog box will appear. The Customize Report dialog box allows you to add fields, to sort by various fields, and to filter various fields. To add additional fields, click in the Field Selection tab, if it's not already open, and navigate down to the Miscellaneous Amount, Miscellaneous Tax, and Miscellaneous Description, Optional Amount, Optional Tax, and Optional Description fields, and place a check besides the fields that you wish to add to a report. When you are finished, click Close. Click Create Refresh Report to run the report. For more information on reports and accounts payable, you can sign up for an AP Reports training class by going to banktel.com/demos. Now that you've viewed this video, you should be able to add use tax records and accounts payable as well as pull default and modified use tax reports.